This fan base is amazing. The city of Cincinnati is amazing, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Desmond fakes a handoff, runs to the right. He's got all sorts of room to the 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Bearcats! 20, 25, toward the middle of the field at the 35, and he is gone! Trey Tucker will take it 98 yards to the house. A nip at night knockout as the Bearcats send a message to the college football world. Did you see that?
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to Viva La Cats. I am your host, Justin Hiles, accompanied by my very good friend, Steve Maurer, and we are here to bring you coverage on the Bearcats every single week in our standard weekly previews, which you're watching here, as well as our post-game Twitter Space reactions, which are becoming more and more volatile. Yeah, let's just kick it off with this. This shit's unacceptable. Where we currently stand is unacceptable. I know Steve is trying to be Mr. Positive this for the rest of the season. This just ain't it. I don't know how else to say it.
Justin rage quit the space on Saturday. That's how upset he is, people. He rage quit. It wasn't that his phone died and he was in the car, not responsibly. No, I'm just kidding. He rage quit that's where the state of this program is right now, folks.
Yeah, I was at the game, and this is the third straight game that I've gone to now that the Bearcats have lost after watching probably like 15 straight, all minus like the two Memphis ones back in 2019, somewhere in the middle there. So I'm not going to count that up. Watching a lot of Bearcats wins, and this is just three straight losses. Time, money, effort, and all of it. I don't know. I've reached the point that when the Bearcats fail, I start laughing because I don't know how else to feel. It's like the stages of grief.
Justin, you merely adopted the dark. I was born in the 2014 season, molded by the 2015, 16, and 17 seasons. And I didn't see the light until the 2019 and 2020 seasons. So then it was nothing but blinding to me. I definitely like, hey, Justin, we are on the opposite ends for the BYU game. You know this. Yep. I was very upset. I was saying mean things to the very nice people around me. I was a shamble. And I think we flipped. I mean, something had to flip during this season, because it wasn't going to be our record. So listeners, you'll hear this later when we preview Houston with Sam Raz of the Scott and Holman Pawdcast, PAW cast, and also the host of Midwest Madness. So basketball season does start tonight as we are recording. So go ahead and listen to that for all your Big 12 basketball. Justin, this conference is going to be a great basketball show. So basketball conference. So when football's done, we can kind of just bury that and dive into basketball because it's going to be a lot of fun. But we have to eat the shit burger while it's still on our plate. And right now, it's a shit burger.
Yep.
Justin, I wanted to give you a couple of reactions to listening to Coach Satz's post-game press conference because I'm sure you didn't listen to it. I'm sure there weren't that many people that listened to it and just saw the quotes on Twitter. And as I did, because, obviously he had the quote about, we'll just see who shows up tomorrow and then we'll go from there. And that sounded a lot worse on Twitter than it actually did in the press conference. Right. Now, I've not been one to shy away from blaming the coach this year. A lot of coach blaming on this here podcast. But, Justin, can you say that Saturday's game was not really on the coach? It was kind of more on the players, if you think about it, because, you had Brian Threats get thrown out for a dumb penalty in the first quarter. Emory throws a bad interception. No, I'm sorry. He had a bad fumble. No. Yeah. Xavier had the bad fumble. Yeah. Emory had the bad interception. And then we just had a lot of penalties. Like, you get Braden Smith down to the 2-yard line and then you false start right there and you have to kick your field goal instead of punching in a touchdown right there. That Chad Brendel had the stat that we just have to read, Justin. It is painful, but we need to read it. So I'm going to pull it up real quick, but it was something like Bearcats have only taken the field twice since the Miami game with a lead as an offense. And it's like every other time the team has given up a lead directly after having a lead. Okay, here it is. The offense, Cincinnati has held the lead 6 times in Big 12 play. 3-0 lead versus UCF and OU is the only time in Big 12 play the offense has taken the field with the lead. Every other time, the defense is allowed to score on the ensuing drive. For what it's worth, the offense failed to score on both of those drives, and the opponent went ahead on the next possession. So that's it. The offense has played from ahead with the ball for a grand total of 13 snaps. Offense has run 444 plays.
Not even drives. 13 snaps. That's so fucking
plays,
sad.
Baby.
That is sad.
Downs. All of that good stuff. So I think here's the thing, Justin. You're not playing complementary football. And when you're not playing complementary football, you're not going to be able to win games. And especially in a league where the level of talent is raised and the margin for error is smaller. And you're just, we saw it on Saturday. I kind of think this Saturday it was on a little bit more on the players not executing. And I know we've gotten on Sat for saying, the play was there, it just wasn't executed correctly. But I mean, not to crap on kids who are not that much younger than me, but how much can we really blame on coaching for this specific game? Like, for example, I mean, why is Braden Smith continuing to try and catch balls in punts? Like, someone's got to be yelling Peter at him in that situation. There's just, now what I will say is and it's kind of the same thing with the Bengals on Sunday, where the decisions to go for it and punt have or kick field goals have kind of worked against them in both games. Like, I think UC had the right idea to go for it, and then it worked against them. And then they had to kick a field goal late in the game because they were unsuccessful earlier in the game on 4th down, and so on and so forth. So I'm more of a proponent of taking points early in the game and then going for it later in the game. But, you still only lost by 2, made it close at the end, cover the spread. Justin, I mean, you were there. You tell me if I'm wrong, but I think there is some positive to take away from this rather than just being, sky's falling, Debbie Downer 7 games straight.
Steve, it's 7 games straight. Like,
okay,
what the fuck? Like,
I get that.
I don't know how else to put it. Like, I mean, it's one thing when, you can look at every single game and microanalyze every detail and say, we're 1 play away from this. It's a 1-score game here. It's this situation. It's this player's fault. It's this coach's fault. I don't even want to look at like player specific or look at coach specific. This is just program as a whole right now, dysfunctional. This program going 7 straight is not what this program has set as the expectation. I don't care what your expectation was coming into the season. If you thought we were going to be an absolute bottom feeder of the Big 12, an absolute bottom feeder of the Big 12 still finds a way to do something. An absolute bottom feeder still finds a way to put together 3 wins on the season. And it looks like it's quite possible that we might not do that, because you have West Virginia and Kansas, who I think are going to kick our ass, and you have Houston, who I think is going to be a toss-up, but it's on the road, and clearly we can't even win at home. I think we've lost what? Let's see. At home, we lost Miami, we lost Iowa State, we lost Baylor, and we've lost UCF. That's 4 straight, 5 if you don't include 5 total if you don't include the outlier of the EKU game that we've lost in basically a season. And that's just unheard of. That's unspoken territory for where this program has been. And your home advantage has meant absolutely nothing this season. Your results have just fallen flat, and you can look at wins and you can look at losses and you can look at all the in between, but ultimately everything is just not working together. Like you said, there isn't enough cohesion. There isn't enough things going right at the right time for this thing to be rolling correctly. But
yeah, and
I
once
think,
again, they did not win the turnover battle. That's got to be a big point of this as well, Justin. They have not won a turnover battle in a game all season. And obviously I just think there is something to that, just coming down to talent and most of these teams having better talent than us, you know.
Well, and that's been our bread and butter over the past few years, has
Yeah.
been absolutely dominating the turnover battle.
But I want to share something that our guy Ryan said in our Bearcat group chat. Ryan Roberts, we had him on before the just in a certain game that includes a tip jar on this podcast. We had him on before that
Smart.
game, and he did say this past weekend that, you know, it's he doesn't really understand like the Satterfield, like the hate. I mean, here I'm just going to share his message here, and I hope he's okay with it. And I apologize for saying it, but
Blasting
here's what he said. This was going to be a transition year regardless of who the head coach was. When you lose 17, remember that, Justin, 17 guys to the NFL over 3 years, there's eventually going to be a decline in roster talent that catches up to you. Fick saw it and bolted. That's not a knock on this roster or these players. It's just facts. And I agree. I happen to think that last year was kind of that downgrade year as well, just because, you know, you lost all of your guys after the 21 season. And it was always going to be a tough couple years here, and maybe the bottom is just falling out at the time where we are all excited about being in a new conference, a new league where people actually care, and the margins are just not hitting it. And obviously, I can't fault anyone for not being completely and overly excited about the Satterfield hire, you know, and I think people are just going to be reductionists and go back to that. But I think we just have to face the fact that it was probably always going to be this way, regardless of who the head coach was, and regardless of how many transfer portal flips you got in here. It was
2 and 7 was always going to be the way.
I mean, no, but look, Justin, they've lost 2 1-score games in this stretch. Maybe another one if I'm BYU game I don't really count because that was another backdoor one. So, but yeah,
Baylor, UCF, Miami.
Well, and then if you technically count BYU, they've lost 4. So lost 4 1-score games.
2-point conversion. Yeah.
Yeah. In this stretch, you know, so, and how many of those games did we win over those years? And also, Justin, responding to your point earlier about how nothing is working, how many times did everything click and go our way during that 2021 season? There was no reason why we should have won that Tulsa game. No reason why we should have eventually pulled out that Navy game. Like, there were a couple of games that year where, I mean, we were down 14-0 to a bad Indiana team in the first quarter. Like, there was a couple times where it did not look like it was going to come to fruition, you know.
An Indiana team with now Heisman Michael Penix Jr. on it.
Yes. Hey, what did our former coach do at Indiana this past weekend? Anybody watch that game? Anybody see that? Anybody kind of wishing that they hadn't wished for him back this year? I'm just saying, you know, Indiana might be as bad as us and they still beat Wisconsin. So, you know, I think it's just unlucky. It's been unfortunate. It's been a couple bad weeks, but, you know, I don't think this is the worst team in history. I haven't seen that anywhere, but I'm going to delay it and say that this is not the worst team in history because for the simple fact that you beat a Power 5 team. Like, how many bad teams have we had in our history that have not beaten a Power 5 team?
No, Steve. Okay, maybe it's not the worst team in history. It might not be the worst team in history, but this team is the worst team in the Bearcats program since like 2000. Like, it's over the past 20 years. Can you think of a team that has performed this poorly, that has failed to do, has done the unthinkable so many times and has failed to do what is so simple in front of you so many times? It's just, this is where I come back, and we disagree on this point, but like, this is where I'm just finding a lot of my issues is you can blame the coach all you want. You can blame the players. I've done a lot of all of it this season. Like I said, I'm kind of just going through the motions at this point, but the point that I've reached in this season now where I sit is every single week, it's the exact same thing. Every single drive, every single play, every single like 3-game gap, every 2-game gap, it's the exact same thing. Nothing has changed. The scheme hasn't changed. The players haven't changed. The players who do good have not been doing better. The players who have done poorly have not been getting pulled out. Like, everything has been the same from the Miami game all the way through to this game against UCF. Nothing has changed. And if you tell me that something has changed, Please highlight in very clear explanation what has changed, because I cannot look at one singular thing and say that this has been an improvement from that game to this game and this has been better. Like, and that's where I find the most issue, is because throughout a season, you're supposed to work out the kinks. Throughout a season, you're supposed to get better. And yet all that this team has done has stayed flat in level. And it's not flat and level in the middle. It's flat and level at the bottom. This team has not figured more stuff out. This team has just continued to plateau this entire season. And I think for me, that's the most frustrating part, is because when you look at where this team has been and where they're at now, there's not enough signs to me that says that Satterfield, if he doesn't have a great turnover and roster to improve it next year, that this is going to be any better. I do not see how this thing improves if he is not willing to change something, or to change up the scheme, or if it goes back to Brian Brown, if it goes to your coordinators. I don't care if Scott Satterfield wants a fresh chance. Look at your coordinators, look at your staff, look at your players, and he's doing a lot of blaming everything right now. It's like, fine, let everything else be blamed. Change some stuff up, and if something improves, I can give you credit for that. But your inability to change anything and to continue to fail over and over again has just, you're sticking your head in the sand and nothing, it's not changing. And I'm very hopeful that this week against Houston, that we see some changes in that. I get that the scheme is working to a T, whatever. You're outgaining teams. You're leading on the statistical boards, the box score. You're doing a better job. Well, that's great. But guess what? Stats don't fucking matter if you're losing every game. And that's all that it comes down to. Like, it's not transitioning into a win. And I don't know how else to put it, that this team has not getting better. There's no signs of life that shows that this team is going to do anything different against Houston, West Virginia, or Kansas. Bowl eligibility is out. So you have 3 games to try to show something different, to give any amount of hope to any of these fans who have reached pure apathy at the end of this season, to feel better about next season. But right now, it just ain't it. It's just ain't it.
So what would you want to change then? Like you said a lot of that, and there's some stuff I agree with, some stuff I don't, but like, what would you want to see change? Because I mean, I see, Justin, like, I'm really not trying to just be my shtick here, a positive guy. I see a team that had 2 different running backs go for 100 yards on Saturday. And understanding that UCF is not a very good rushing defensive team. I see a team that, like, I do think that there should be a quarterback change. But even the quarterback that sat came in and led 2 productive touchdown drives. Like, I get it, Justin, and I just think it's been a lot of us not having the depth to be able to make those changes and play those players and give them a chance. There is some stuff, like, I don't know why Barry Jackson was in the game to only play for 2 plays. If you're going to burn his red shirt, like, burn it to the ground. Don't do this like ticky-tack stuff. Like, he's a dynamic playmaker, man. I agree. If you want players in the game that will change the game and make plays, get that guy in the game. Like, let him play as a true freshman, you know? And I mean, I'm kind of the mind of, and I agree with some of our people in our Bearcat group chat, Justin, that, like, do red shirts matter right now? I mean, they matter a little bit more maybe in basketball, like, especially if you're trying to build a program, but in football, I don't really think red shirts matter, because these guys can just transfer, use their one time, and go somewhere else when they've developed. And I just think, like, I don't know. I'm just kind of, there is some stuff I agree with, but what would you want to see be a concrete, like, actual change for Saturday?
Stop putting in, don't put in a player that everybody's clamoring for and then pull him after 2 plays. That's like the classic Mick Cronin move. Like, don't just take a guy out for discipline and say, okay, now you're right, let's put him back in. Like, first of all, let's set that. Play your young guys, play all of them. You don't have bowl eligibility. You have senior night. That's your way to say thank you to the seniors. Other than that, and your seniors who are actually, like, solid and have been here for all these years, that are your tried and true Bearcats and are playing well, keep playing them. But the guys that are constantly, like, screwing up, the guys that have not been improving throughout the season, pull them, put the new guys in, play them, let them get as many reps as possible. Like you said, at this point, burn your red shirts. Doesn't matter. I agree. I don't think it matters at this point. Burn your red shirts, play them, get the experience, show them that they have an opportunity to start for this team if they're going to be good enough to play next year in that position. Also, the same drives where you run the same plays over and over and over again, and then you get down to the end of the field and you fail to convert over and over and over again. You need to figure out how to fix that, because again, this is where I've found that like we are very good between like the 20 and the 30. And then once we get to that, we've burned all our steam and the playbook runs out. Get an offensive coordinator, put an offensive coordinator in there. You can't do that this year, but if there's not an offensive coordinator on the staff that is running the plays next year, I will lose my mind. Scott Satterfield has to be a CEO. He has to run this team, and he has to worry about management of the players, of the staff, of the team, and he cannot be running the plays too, because you can clearly see that his offensive playbook is running dry. And every single time when it becomes predictable and every team finds a way to stop you over and over again, and you can't find a way to put up 30 points on the board, and your defense is getting absolutely gassed by a very good offensive Big 12 conference, you need to find a way to change that up. And Scott Satterfield is not doing that right now. So again, there's a lot of small changes that I think need to be made to like implement something to change things up in order to see some amount of progress. And it doesn't, I wouldn't say that it doesn't matter of wins or losses at this point, but find a way to win one of the next 3 games. If you can do that, show people that you've seen a lot of the shit that's messed up so far this season, and you find a way to just scrape something together. Because again, a good team can lose a lot of games, but a good team does not lose every game. A bad team can win a screwy game, but a bad team cannot win a lot of games. We need to figure out which one we are, because we're not a good team right now that's losing a lot of games. A lot of people are calling UCF that. I don't know. UCF's at the bottom of the barrel with us, and they still found a way to battle for 13th place and put us firmly in 14th. And I'm still not happy about that. That's probably one of the most frustrating things from this weekend. We've now lost 2 straight to UCF, and I mean, they're at the bottom with you. And yeah, it was a tight game, but this is the one thing I want to end this off on, because we talked so much basketball or football here. This is the thing that I found the most interesting when it got to the end of the game. This past weekend, UCF scored. A bunch of people left the stands. Half the student section's gone already. Everybody's like starting to clear out. Game looks like it's over. Give the Bearcats the ball back. They've got to drive to win the game, or play to tie the game, because they need a 2-point conversion. They get all the way down the field. They score. Great. We figured out how to score in crunch time against a team that has been doing a decent job of stuffing our offense, if we haven't done it to ourselves. They score the touchdown. I kid you not. I think I saw just as many people get up out of their seats and leave as I did when the UCF scored the touchdown, for that remaining amount of people that were left. And then what happens right after that? We draw up a 2-point play conversion, and it just goes horribly. And everybody, like, it's just, what I'm saying is, like, being at that game, you can just feel the collective just sigh when UCF scores. When we're going through that drive, everybody's like checked out, like, this ain't happening. Like, this team is not doing it. And they get down the field, and they did what they've done all season long. And I hate being the negative Nancy on all this, but again, it's just more of the same. And until something changes, until there is noticeable improvement to show that you can do all the right things when necessary and not continue to fail at the same ways, that everybody is so predictable that you can leave a game early because you know how it's going to end, even if there's a chance to win, I think that's pretty sad. So something needs to change, but
yep,
I don't know. I can't crosshair everything right now.
Fair enough. I mean, I agree. I don't like losing to you don't think they're a rival. I think they're a rival.
Why do you keep saying that, Steve? I've literally said so many times.
I asked you point blank if beating them does like changes anything, and you said no, it doesn't. And so
that has nothing to do with being a rival.
Yes, it does. It has everything to do with being a rival.
Absolutely not. They can be separate things.
Ask any Army fan if they go 0-11 and they beat Navy, if their season was a success.
That 2-7 right now. And you're looking at a possible 2-10. Nothing about that is a success. Even if you beat UCF, nothing about that is a success. They are still a garbage team, and we still lost to a garbage team. Nothing about that is a success, and I hate that we lost to them. They are a rival, and those two things can be separate. They do not need to be the same thing.
I don't know. We already lost to another rival that I can't name because I already owed too much money to a tip jar. But anyway, Justin, you said you were tired of talking about football. Why don't we talk about another sport that is about to tip off in just about 10 minutes while we're recording?
Yes, sir. Basketball. Long awaited. I'm sorry. The football season has drained so much energy out of me. This is a funny thing, too, because if you were to go back and listen to all our episodes, you'd hear so much excitement, especially at the beginning. And you see so much like apologist activity, trying to find a way to still be happy about everything while still being upset. Now I've just reached the point of being upset. So basketball, I can lead with optimism, and I can lead with too much optimism, because if I'm disappointed, it'll just be more of what I've been disappointed about. We have potential, and we have an opportunity to actually be good. And I think the most interesting thing about this season is you get a lot of guys who have had a lot of experience so far throughout their years here. You get some fresh guys who are pretty good. And if you can find a way to mix it all together and end up coming out with a win, coming out with a win pretty much out the gates in conference play, if you can take care of your non-conference schedule, I think there's a lot of excitement around this team. And I don't think it necessarily, is going to derail very fast with just a loss here or there. However, if that does happen during non-conference play, there may be some issues.
Yep. I was just looking up Cyclone Larry's preseason predictions, just because we are Cyclone Larry fans on this podcast. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what he thinks of the Bearcats this year. So he does think we will finish above the Golden Knights this week, the Citronauts of Central Florida. He says we will go 5-13, 5-1-3 area code, nice, in the league, total of 18-15 in the conference. So I put the over under at 17.5 last week. Cyclone Larry's taking the over. I kind of like it, Justin. I mean, like, I do think that there is a chance, if the waivers come through, that we can be a little bit better. But I've learned from football, Justin, to just enjoy the ride, baby. Enjoy what's happening. And, maybe we just take it back to those old Big East days where, like, the old coach, kind of tried to set us up for a couple of years. And obviously the turnaround time can be quicker, but there's no illusion in my mind that this first year might be a little bit tough for the Bearcats.
Oh yeah, no, I'm fully expecting that it'll be tough, but the other side of me is just, why expect losses when you can just hope for a win?
I'm not expecting losses. I mean, I will still be upset if we drop a game in the last 5 seconds. I think, Justin, if we do go 5-13, I would love, what would your goals be for this year? I think my goals are to beat Xavier, 1. I think try to go 500 in conference, 2, and that's with waivers. Obviously, this is all with waivers, and I'm hoping that the waiver situation gets figured out before the Xavier game, the shootout. But I think my dreams and my goals would be beat Xavier, go 500, and get to the NCAA tournament.
There's honestly nothing about what you just said there that I would disagree with. I think that if I had 3 points, I think you just kind of hammer all of them. Maybe if I can sweeten it a little bit, don't win a game. Yeah, that'd be ugly. That'd be really ugly. Don't lose a game until you hit January when you're playing non-conference.
Don't be featured on John Rothstein's Epitome of Brutality.
Don't be one of those folks. I would say during conference play, steal some away wins. You're going to play some teams that are probably going to be ranked on the road. get some away wins, get some of those big wins there. Of course, a lot of these are all these games are going to be quad 2. Some of them are going to be quad 1 as well. Steal some of those quad 1 wins. If you're going to win, take the quad 1 wins. And I think I think my goal too, get to the tournament. And
that's my dream. That's not my goal. I'm just saying that just for the Big 12 heads out there that are listening. That's my dream. Is that
I would say no.
Can.
I see what you're saying, but I would say that's my goal. I would say tournament is goal. And I know it sounds like a moonshot here, Steve, but if
have you not learned nothing from this football season?
Did you not just say that you want to go, your goal is to go 500 in conference?
Well, I said dreams as my caveat.
Okay, you said goals and dreams. So which one is it?
I said goals first, and then I said my dream.
So your dream is to go 500.
500 in conference. My dream is to beat Xavier, and then my dream is to get to the tournament. My
goals, if you go 500 in conference, you are definitely going to the tournament.
My goal for this team is to not have a losing season. How about that? Be the most connected team in the history of Cincinnati basketball. Shout out to Matt Campbell.
This might be a stretch, but if I could also have a dream, have a better record than you did last year. Doesn't matter how you do it. Doesn't matter how ugly or good it looks. Have a better record than you did last year. You've improved on it year by year under Wes. If you can do it again in a conference that's this difficult, that shows you have a shit ton of potential going forward. A lot of potential going forward. Will it happen? Most likely not. But I think this roster has a lot of potential. I think there's a lot of youth here. The thing that I like a lot about this sport, a little bit better than football, is it's very easy to just throw in those younger guys and have some impact players like that. It's very easy to see all those guys, test all those guys in games and get those minutes and get to see all of them and see the effect very fast and see if they're up to speed enough to be able to play those heavier minutes and what you're going to have going forward. You get those flashes a lot earlier than you do on the football field. And so
upsets and buzzer beaters are much more of a thing in college basketball.
Yeah, that they are. And I think, hopefully we're a lucky team this year. Hopefully we're a team that can just find a way to pull stuff out at the end. And I think one of the other things that I would like to note too, we did incredibly well against the spread last year. Let's continue that too. Let's continue that.
Sounds good.
Let's just cover that shit. Like if we're gonna be we're probably not going to be favored in many of our games this year, but cover the spread.
Yep. I like that.
If you're gonna lose good, and if you're gonna win, just frickin' win, man.
Lose good. I like that. The Cubs mantra from the year they won the World Series was try not to suck. So how about we just take that for the Bearcats this year?
Try not to suck. Try not to suck, because we've seen enough of that this year.
So Justin, real quick, you said that we are going to have a young team on the men's side. On the women's side, we're also going to have a young team here. And I want to take a little time. We're going to drop this in post, but just a quick preview from the 10-12 Network's own Jamie Steyer Johnson about the women's team. And Justin, let's go ahead and hear that right now.
Cincinnati has a lot of new faces in their first Big 12 season. Head coach Katrina Merriweather is looking to lead the Bearcats into a renaissance reminiscent of her own college days in 1997 to 2001. She was the first player in school history to make 4 straight postseason appearances and saw the first NCAA tournament win as a grad assistant in 2002. Coach Merriweather is no stranger to adversity at the helm. She led Memphis to 16 wins in her first season there. This was a program coming off of a 4-win season. Cincinnati will be one of the youngest teams in the Big 12 with 5 freshmen and only 6 upperclassmen on the roster. The experience they do have is significant, though, as the Bearcats returned last season's leaders in nearly every statistical category. Hometown girl Jillian Hayes led the team in points, rebounds, and steals, as well as coming in second for blocks and third in assists. She can do it all. Point guard Maya Jackson is back for her 5th year and led the team in assists, coming in just behind Hayes in points and steals. And Clarissa Craig and Malia Williams will be holding it down at the front court, as Craig averaged over 56% shooting from the floor and Williams led the team in blocks. All that to say, Cincy's core certainly trusts Coach Merriweather. Had Clarissa Craig and guard Braylon Milton both entered the portal before ultimately deciding to stick with the Bearcats. That says something.
Thank you, Jamie, for posting that to your public Twitter feed. Everybody go follow her at jstyes with a Z, Steyz. But Justin, let's recap the Bearcats in our own fashion with the Bearcat Sports Wrap Up. Does that sound good to you?
Do it.
All righty, here we go. Bearcat Sports Wrap Up presented to you by Charlie Hustle and the 1012 Patreon feed, patreon.com/1012 network. Ready in 3, 2, 1. Women's basketball unfortunately did lose on tonight is before we recorded game 1 of the season, game 1 of the Katrina Merriweather era to Louisville 77-59. Jillian Hayes with 20 tonight, so shout out to her. They're playing next Wednesday against Lindenwood on Education Day at 11 a.m. So if you want to hear a lot of children screaming loud at 11 a.m. Eastern time, watch that game. Volleyball lost both matches to BYU, and they're playing at Texas on Saturday. So that should be another big test for the volleyball Bearcats. Tennis, they're playing in the Big 12 Fall Championships this weekend. Good luck to the tennis team. And the hockey team, they unfortunately dropped 2 games to Louisville this weekend. Did not prove to them that the copium is not going well, especially with a loss in an additional sport. Let's play basketball again, Louisville. And the hockey team is headed to Delaware this upcoming weekend. So good luck to them. Justin, I think that's all we have for us today.
I believe it is. We do have a second half, which Steve and Sam will be going over the Houston preview for this week's game. But I do have one final thing to add.
What's that?
We have some good friends over at Charlie Hustle, and we would just like to make sure that you're aware of that. So please head on over to www.charliehustle.com. Check out their college collection. They have plenty of great offerings for many different teams, including almost all but us in the Big 12. And there's a lot of good options there. There is as well a white and black and red Big 12 conference t-shirt that you can wear, and you can still support your Bearcats. Would love to see some people out in that. But if you'd like to purchase anything over from there, please use the 1012 promo code, which is 101215 for 15% off of all non-sale items. That is good for the season. So please be sure to check that out. And like I said, we're just waiting and hoping to see if we can get some Bearcats merch in there, because we know that if it's in there, it's going to be fire. So if we know and we get it, we'll let you know. So keep on track over here. And of course, keep on tuning in to our post-game live spaces that we've been doing. We're going to continue to do that for better or for worse. And again, with some of the bigger basketball games this year, I would imagine once we get to full swing of conference play, we'll probably have some more regular ones there as well. So just keep on the lookout and we'll be around, but enjoy the second half with Steve and Sam.
Viva
La Cats.
All righty. We are here with Sam from the Scott and Holman Pawdcast, also the host of the Midwest Madness podcast, 2 great podcasts on the 1012 Podcast Network. Sam, thank you for joining me. I'm sorry you're going to have to watch the Cincinnati Bearcats play football on Saturday.
Well, Steve, thank you for having me on, and I don't feel a whole lot better about you or anyone else having to watch Houston Cougar football season, so we can call ourselves even on that little exchange there.
Yeah, I had to be really nice to the UCF people last week because we were both very bad, and we're still winless after that exchange. So, but Houston has done a little bit better than the rest of us newcomers. 2 wins so far, including an exciting overtime win on Saturday against Baylor. What has Houston been able to do so far? It seemed like kind of we were in that same stretch there where we both lost to our close rivals, lost a trophy game that we had been winning for a long time. And then Houston's been able to turn it around and get 2 conference wins, which is more than the Bearcats can say.
Yeah, like I think with anything I'm going to answer about this team, there's not a whole lot that I'm going to really vigorously be like, yeah, this is something really good about this team. There are a few things, but it's not many. So I don't know if this team has really done anything consistently excellent, even being able to play a couple of Big 12 wins. But I would say, such as this team's been able to do some good things and get a couple of Big 12 wins, I guess to their favor, it's been periodically the Cougar offense. I'm not going to say the Cougar defense did nothing to help the cause on Saturday. This one thing I was kind of thinking about when I put together my thoughts on this one is, yes, this defense did have some pretty notable failings. I think chief among them, letting Blake Shapen run for 27 yards on a 4th and 17 when a stop would have won the game conclusively for the Cougars at that point. So the defense did hand the ball to the Cougars with a 17-10 lead. So I don't want to make this entirely about the offense, but I would say periodically, not consistently, we've seen Donovan Smith and this Cougar team develop something like a pretty good passing attack. There have been also flashes in the run. Individually is quite good at getting tough yards. He's not the most explosive runner, but in a pinch, he's a guy who's pretty good at getting 2 to 5 yards on the ground if you need it. You've seen flashes also from Parker Jenkins, a true freshman running back who really one of the, I would say, group of guys who might not have considered U of H prior to this Big 12 move, 4-star local kid who's really looked physically ready for the Division I level at a way you don't necessarily expect from an 18, 19-year-old. So that's been positive. I think this receiver group, which we kind of knew in the preseason was talented with Matthew Golden, Joseph Manjack, and Samuel Brown. And Brown's been, I think, the real nice surprise. He was a contributor last year, but I would say very much third or fourth kind of choice among your receivers last year. And this year has really turned himself into the alpha dog of this group. Is I think the leader, one of the leaders in receiving yards in the conference this year. So that's been a positive. You've occasionally seen stuff from the running game. Donovan Smith has occasionally been part of a really good passing. I mean, this offense threw for almost 400 yards against probably Texas's best team since 2009. I mean, obviously very heartbreaking finish in that one, but you still saw flashes there. But you've also seen, I think, this offense just go through long stretches of not being productive. So again, limited in how positive I am, but I would say the Cougars are in a position to realistically still be looking at bowl eligibility because this offense has had its moments kind of figuring stuff out at times in conference play.
So speaking on that offense real quick, the loss of Shannon Dawson in the offseason, was that kind of part of the change as to why this offense has not been as great? Would you say it's a quarterback issue? What would you really draw it up to?
You know, I'm not so sure, because it really looked like Dawson early on this season in Miami, that team really looked like a revitalized offense. And I even kind of mentioned it a few times. It's like, okay, well, this guy leaves here and he's instantly like overseeing a pretty good offense. They've kind of come back down to earth a bit. And similarly, the O-line coach is now at Missouri, who's having, I think, one of their better seasons in the SEC as well. So I guess I don't think anyone was particularly sad to see Shannon Dawson go. I don't think anyone who's had Shannon Dawson as an offensive coordinator, I think that's Kentucky and Southern Miss prior to us, has been terribly sad to see him go. I think the change at quarterback is the biggest thing, going from Clayton Tune, somebody who basically was the starter from about, I think it was the 5th game of Dana Holgerson's first season until last year. So it was someone very, I guess, you pencil in the quarterback. You knew there wasn't going to be any kind of real competition there. It was Clayton Tune's team for the last 4 to 5 years. So, and Donovan Smith coming in, I think we were excited about some of the stuff we saw him do last year against Texas Tech, including but not limited to beating the Cougars last year in week 2 up in Lubbock. So there's been some, I think, kind of understandable growing pains there, but there's also just been, I think, just long stretches. Like there's times this offense looks great. Looks like a really dynamic passing attack. Looks like Donovan Smith can not just make things happen in the run game with his feet, but can move the pocket around and find open guys. And there have been flashes of really Donovan Smith and his receivers looking like they're way ahead of schedule in terms of kind of one guy knowing where the other is kind of innately. But then there are also times where Donovan Smith throws it to a spot that his receivers nowhere near, and it's one of the more baffling interceptions you've seen. So I think you can chalk a lot of that up to I think having a new quarterback and everyone dealing with him for the first time. But also I think that there are some fundamentally broken things with what Dana Holgerson does offensively. And I do think even with this offense having some flashes at times, I think this is still screaming out for, in the offseason, if Dana Holgerson can clear the bar such to keep his job, to bring in some kind of outside mind to run the offense where it's not just, okay. And that was always the question when Shannon Dawson was here. Is this Shannon Dawson's offense? Is this Dana Holgerson's offense? They always insisted to the public that, hey, this is Shannon Dawson's offense, but again, hard to truly know. So I would say some combination of breaking in new players, and also I think just honestly, just some fundamentally broken stuff, or some stuff that Dana Holgerson hasn't updated ideally to 2023 college offense.
Yeah. Yeah, you're speaking to the choir here with Cincinnati Bearcats fans. Unfortunately, we've been watching a broken offense for about 7 games now. So, not the greatest year so far for us. A lot of quarterback issues as well. It's just been a tough stretch. And before the season, we had been maybe looking at this game as a potential winnable game, and the spread still shows that as a winnable game for Cincinnati. But only a 2.5 spread last time I checked in Houston's favor, Houston being the home team as well. But with the way just the season has gone and with how poorly the team has looked, especially just undisciplined, just a lot of penalties, a lot of first year stuff that you can't really avoid, that to me seems avoidable, but maybe that's just the higher coming down to it in the end. We don't need to get into all of our pain and trouble. Speaking of Dana, though, what is the point to which the fan base is okay with him staying? Is bowl eligibility enough for him? Because obviously, we've seen in the past at Houston, where bowl eligibility is not enough. And, just you guys obviously are very excited like we are to be in the Big 12, but I definitely understand from Houston's point of view if you don't think 6-6 is enough.
And I think if this was his first or second year here, I think honestly probably 5 wins would do it. Like get this or UCF. I mean, theoretically Oklahoma State, but I don't foresee U of H being able to really compete with that team even at home. So I think it's the fact that this is his 5th season here. This is a roster that is his choosing. He came on our podcast this summer and even talked about how compared to when he was at West Virginia, he actually had more lead time to build this. So he had 2 years basically to build this roster. And, obviously there's going to be some level of transition there, but he didn't lean in the preseason into any excuses about, well, I haven't had time to get the roster. He was very, I think, emphatic. This is a Big 12 roster. I think some of the games since then have proven him wrong on that one. And I think there's some segment of the fan base that they just want him gone. I mean, I guess if he went like he somehow beat Oklahoma State and obviously won this coming Saturday in the finale against UCF, I think 7-5 would make some people, even with some of the low points this year, like really raise their eyebrows. I think most people, even if they wouldn't be thrilled about him coming back in the Cougar fan base, would at least accept that, hey, he got to 6-6. That's by most metrics on a season where you're jumping up in terms of level of competition in the conference. I think that's it. I think most people, even if they're not happy about it, are at least cognizant of the fact that, hey, if he's getting to bowl eligibility, there's no way U of H is going to, whether now or piecemeal over the next 3 years, eat a $14 million buyout. It's not happening. It's not palatable. And frankly, it's not good financial sense. But I think I would say there's still probably a good at least 25-30% of fan base that still adamantly would want him out regardless of that, and wouldn't even take the consideration that, hey, this administration is not going to make a move after bowl eligibility. But I would still count myself among the group of people who would not be thrilled, would be understanding. But I don't know. I'm not dying to watch another year of Dana Holgorsen football after this one. I mean, maybe these next 3 games are a different Houston team and I'm singing a different tune in December, but I haven't seen anything to really make me believe that's going to be the case.
Yeah, because our teams met up in the 2021 American Conference Championship game, and
we sure did. Feels like a lifetime ago, honestly.
It really does, honestly. I was able to go to that game, and I feel states away, and I think our team is states away from just actually being at that same point again. But it was obviously, you lose a couple guys after the 2022 season where some people thought maybe that was a chance to build off of the success of 21 and continue to keep rising. And, I saw Houston bring in Tom Herman after Tony Levine in 2014, and just how quickly that turned into such success for the Cougar program. And, I'm not going to tell any fans to feel how they want to feel differently, just because they know both of our programs have really seen the height of success with past coaches and our current coaches. And I would have said the same thing about UCF last week. Like,
yep.
I think as long as Dana Holgorsen doesn't have Jimmy Sexton as his agent, because both UCF and us have that problem, I don't think we're going to get out of our buyouts anytime soon. But You guys might have more of a chance if you don't. I don't know.
I think honestly, I mean, I guess the good thing is when they did negotiate, I think now looking very ill-advised extension after the 21 season for Holgerson. It isn't a situation like Malzahn at Auburn, or if you want to go back a little further, Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M, where U of H would within X number of days owe the lump sum. U of H can pay it out monthly the same way they pay out a salary now, but I mean, even still, 14 million and something over 36 months is still a little bit of change. So I think, honestly, from Cougar fan perspective, if this last month does really go south, you do lose these last 3 games and don't even get close to the bar of eligibility, including losing the Saturday to a previously Big 12 winless Cincy. I don't know. I think it's about U of H's money people basically going to Tillman Fertitta, the current Houston Rockets owner, U of H Board of Regents. I can't remember if it's president or chairman, one of those titles, and fast casual tyrant, to basically be like, please buy us out of the bad contract that you did. So I think that's kind of U of H's position. If these last 3 weeks do go bad, then I'm sure asking for whatever from the other big money donors. But I think from what I've heard, it really does sound like this is going to be Tillman Fertitta, please rescue us if this last month goes south.
Makes sense. So I'm just curious from the Houston fan standpoint. I'm sure you guys have not went out of your way to watch our games, because again, if I was not a fan of this team, I would probably not be watching.
I actually watched a good chunk, and this is probably not one you would have wanted me to see. I watched a good chunk of Iowa State Cincy, because there wasn't a lot going on in the early time slot that week, and my co-host and I were at the Circus Sportsbook here, and watched probably more of that than anyone would want to watch, I guess, unless you're an Iowa State fan.
Yeah, that was tough just because that was homecoming weekend, coming off a bye. You thought maybe they'd have a little bit. They did not. They did not have more.
Yeah, it was pretty decisive.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate. But what's something that I can explain to you about our team that you may not have seen so far this year?
Here's what I don't understand. Yeah, I want you to answer this for me. Why was there no backup plan beyond a 6th-year senior? Because like this year, a quarterback, excuse me, be more specific, Emory Jones. Like I understand like taking a flyer on him for his last year of eligibility. Like he's done some good stuff in his college career. Totally get that. What I don't, and I think this is what would really, really, really concern me if I was a Cincinnati fan. Like I remember Holgerson's first year here. It was pretty rough, but it was also a very young offense. It's sophomore Clayton Tune out there. If you're going to at least be in that position, like, okay, well, at least go full youth move. At least we're going to get a full look at whoever the freshman or sophomore quarterback of the future is. It's like, fuck, it's a 6th-year guy. And that's the thing that, not that we talked about Cincy a ton, but when we do our Big 12 kind of look around, it's just like, man, this would feel a little bit less desperately not encouraging if it wasn't like a guy that's eligible. So my question is, what do you think went into this staff not at least going after, I mean, obviously high school recruiting when you're coming in, like I'm not saying you should have signed a high school guy to be ready for this, but like, why wasn't there another, like, I don't know, maybe take a flyer on another, like an FCS guy looking to transfer up? Like, that's my, like, how is Emory Jones your only possible answer at quarterback? That's my question.
Scott, have you ever done, sorry, I called you Scott. My apologies, Sam.
Oh, you're good, man.
Sam, have you ever done like the homework for a project and then the parameters of the project changed and you still turned in the same work despite the project changing?
Yes.
That was basically what happened with Scott Satterfield, because Emory Jones mentioned at Big 12 Media Day this year that he was being recruited to Louisville by the same Scott Satterfield staff, and then the coaching change happened, and they let him know that they were moving on to Cincinnati and that they were still interested in him, and he went there. Now, obviously, Louisville, like, I don't know how much better Jack Plummer is than Emory Jones, but we've seen as Cincinnati fans, and we're hating it, how much more successful they are with Satterfield gone and with a new coach in there. Some of the same roster. They obviously got some transfer turnover down there, but a lot of the same dudes that were on the roster last year only have 1 loss on the season so far. They've pretty much turned it around instantly, and credit to Jeff Brom on that. But it seems like they had kind of already done the work on the quarterback that they wanted to bring in, and maybe he would have been more successful at Louisville with more talent. I do think it's a problem of talent just around the entire roster this year. Lost a lot of guys as well, which hurts depth, but it just seems like he was still the solution regardless of the problem changing. And I just don't see why they continue to keep putting him in these games, because Sam, look, like on Saturday, they had Emory start the first two series. Then they brought in the backup quarterback, who is admittedly a third-year guy. There was some quarterback controversy with Cincinnati last year. Never really got any mention for that quarterback controversy, despite the job being up for grabs. So he's just been on the roster, and there's been some flashes from him. He completed a good 30-yard pass on Saturday, and they instantly sat him down and went back to Emory Jones. And it just, again, the same thing as well. Like I just don't understand why you're continuing to play a 6-year guy, especially when we have young guys on this roster that need the playing time. Then you're not going to make a bowl. Already lost your 7th game. It just doesn't make sense to me. They continue to play older guys. There's even a elite 11 quarterback that Cincinnati was able to retain with this signing class. He was committed to Luke Fickell, and then Satterfield was able to retain him, Brady Drogish, and he is still third on the depth chart, has not even looked close to being able to come in the game. And I get it. Maybe you don't want to throw in a true freshman quarterback, but we're within the threshold now of the redshirt year, where if you play people the last 3 games of the season, you don't need to, you're not going to lose their redshirt. They can still redshirt for the year. And his answer to that on Saturday, Sam, was, we just want to win. We're trying to win ball games. And my answer to that is, look, you've lost 7 in a row. Change something. Like, let us see these young guys progress. It just seems like they had all the work done on Emory, and they're like, okay, we're going to put him in this offense. He's going to work. And then the situation changed, but they just still tried to answer that situation with Emory. And that was the concern at Louisville as well. I was able to hear a couple of Louisville talk radio people talk to Cincinnati people when the hire was made. And that was the problem, was that there was no quarterback at all at Louisville, despite Malik Cunningham and Jawan Pass. No secondary quarterback option. And seemingly that's kind of what happened at UC too, and why Fickell left, is because after Desmond Ridder, there seemed to be no second quarterback.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think that's the problem. And look, there's the amount of people that like Scott Satterfield now at UC, whether it be fair or not, is very little. I do think the talent was not going to be good enough this year, looking back at it. But just the consistent wanting to play Emory despite the problems, seeming to try and take control of a team by instituting suspensions, sitting guys down for the year. It just reeks of trying to take control of a roster, trying to set his own roster, and then losing creates all the problems as well. So it's been a tough year, TLDR, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, like fairly or not, like when you go from 2 years ago to the playoff to, you know, now on November 6th, talking about a team that's mathematically limited from bowl eligibility, even if there are like you pointed out, some probably obvious underlying reasons to why, you know, why Satterfield may not have been set up to be, you know, he wasn't handed a future playoff team, but also I have a hard time believing he was handed a team that, you know, that wasn't capable of at least being around bowl eligibility when it was all said and done this year. You know, like even setting a very low bar to clear, I think. Yeah, it's hard to feel great about. But I mean, at least he hasn't publicly said he's stopped recruiting the class of 2024, which Dana Holgorsen basically did on his last coach's show.
I did see that. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that's not great.
The craziest part about it is, like, the star recruits that the staff has gotten: Matthew Golden, the receiver, the two biggest receiver commits in the last class, Michael Harrison Pilot, who was a high school All-American, didn't commit until February. And it's just like, yeah, no, we're done recruiting. It's like, hey, awful lot of confidence that you'll be around in 2025, buddy. Like, just, oh yeah, we're recruiting in 2025 now. It's like,
yeah,
are you sure you'll be there? Yeah.
Well, and then like your class is pretty similar to ours, and you know, we have 23 guys right now, but we're ranked in the 40s. I mean, like, for programs like us who are entering the Big 12, like, I'm sorry, that's just not going to cut it. Like, and like,
I don't think that's terrible. I mean, if it wasn't if we weren't all the other stuff, like, there's obviously, I think the season's probably planted some seeds of doubt that this head coach and the staff can develop that. But God, man, I think we were behind like 25 group of 5 programs as the last check. So it could be worse on that front. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't trade that for being 2-7 right now, but I don't know. Like, we'll probably, decent chance we'll also end up in the same place when it's all said and done this year. So
yeah, I mean, I'll just give you my prediction right now, and I'd like to hear yours as well.
Yeah.
I think Houston will win by a touchdown at least on Saturday. I have not predicted a Bearcats loss on this podcast, so this is a historic event, Sam. But I just like, no offense to our players, the coaches, anybody. I just don't think like we have the ability to go win a road game right now, especially a conference road game. If I seriously believe last Saturday's game against UCF was probably our best shot at a conference win this season. And with that game out of the way, and with Houston winning another game on the road against a legacy Big 12 member, the confidence in this game went down. And Cincinnati has a 43% chance to win, according to ESPN. But I think ESPN just values those first two games in their power rankings and is not taken really into consideration enough of the past 7 games.
Yeah, I think a gun to my head, I'd predict a Cougar win. I don't even know if I'd go a touchdown. I might even say I could see it being like a 24-20, like 31-27 kind of game. I don't think either team will pull away at any point in this one. And like, again, very, very happy to have the wins over West Virginia and Baylor specifically, I think for reasons respective to those two opponents. But we'll also point out that one of those games, and I think boiling it down to the Hail Mary, I think is unfair to what was a good offensive effort in that one. Like the Cougars moved the ball very well in West Virginia, better than I think any of us expected going into that game. But I mean, you still needed a Hail Mary like at the end there to win that one. Still needed overtime to beat Baylor in a game where, I mean, the Cougars had been very, very bad on the road, including but not limited to losing to Rice and losing 41-0 to K-State in a game where I don't think 41-0 truly tells you what an ass kicking it was. So, and that's all to say that, like, obviously a lot of warts to this UC team, a lot of warts to this Cougar team, and that this UC team could be on a 7-game losing streak, and I'm still sitting in front of you, not even to be nice. Like, hey, I would love a comfortable Big 12 win. I didn't think such a thing would have been possible earlier this year, but I won't believe it until I see it from this team. So, while I think it's a Cougar win, I think I'd probably do the reverse prediction if this was going to be a nipper. I know this is a different looking roster. I don't love that there's at least some amount of guys still on that sideline that remember beating Houston regularly, were on the roster when this team beat Houston. And it was 2019, because I was in the game in Houston in 2019. So beat him 3 years in a row from 2019 to 21, and have just historically done really very well since I would say the post Herman era of Houston Cougar football. So that doesn't make me feel more confident on the Houston side for it. But again, I think the Cougars maybe end up just being a slightly less of a flawed team. But just like last Saturday's game at Baylor, I think I tweeted something like this. I don't think any of us will feel better for having watched this football game, or richer for the experience in any way. Hopefully, would love. I would still feel great if the Cougars were at 5 wins at that point. It's like, okay, you just have to split the last 2 to get bowl eligible. But I'm not wildly confident, Steve. Not wildly confident it's going to happen.
Well, Sam, I'm confident in the fact that hopefully we'll get to enjoy a decent to good football game on Saturday, a night game on a actual network. I was kind of surprised by that.
I know, me too.
So, I mean, hey, it's better than having to play in the American on ESPN Plus or ESPNU. So
absolutely.
Sam, thank you so much for joining me. Bearcat fans, please go listen to Scott and Holman Podcast. Go listen to Midwest Madness. First episode of Midwest Madness just dropped this Monday with Ethan Bach covering all Big 12 news. Got to go tune into that. Check out some basketball this year. Basketball does start tonight while we're recording. Sam's about to go watch the Houston game, and I'm going to go watch the Cincinnati game later. So, Sam, again, thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to Saturday, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. We'll talk again. Great stuff, Steve.